Good Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Michelle Beck. Our top story this morning, a massive manhunt still underway for whomever shot and killed conservative political activist Charlie Kirk. It happened during an on-campus event at Utah Valley University. This picture taken moments before Kirk was killed. Just in this morning, law enforcement say they believe they have the gun used in the shooting and that they were able to track the shooter through surveillance and witnesses. However, he, and authorities say he, is still on the run. Officials ask anyone with video or pictures of the shooting to send them to police right away. We're also just learning that Vice President J.D. Vance will be traveling to Utah to meet with Charlie Kirk's family. This instead of traveling to New York City for the 9/11 ceremony. NBC's Bafta Imam has the latest.
Good morning. The shooter still at large as police try to find the person responsible for killing Charlie Kirk. Meanwhile, here in the nation's capital, tributes from both sides of the aisle are pouring in on what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. In the hours after conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot in a brazen attack, armed officers swarmed Utah Valley University, while Utah's governor sent this message.
I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
Witnesses say immediately before the shooting, Kirk was taking questions from an audience member about mass shootings and gun violence. Moments later, fear ripped through campus.
It was terrifying. None of us knew what was going on.
Kirk co-founded the youth organization Turning Point USA back in 2012. With millions of online supporters, he's credited with being a one-of-a-kind organizer, mobilizing the youth vote for Trump.
TikTok helped, but Charlie Kirk helped also.
I truly believe that President Trump, throughout these last couple of years, overcoming all these odds is one of the greatest stories ever told.
And it was Trump who announced his death on social media, ordered flags to be flown at half-staff, and later gave remarks in a 4-minute video.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagreed.
But on Capitol Hill, most stayed away from politics and leaned in.
Please rise for a moment of prayer.
To swift bipartisan condemnation.
This is detestable, what's happened. Political violence has become all too common in American society.
Not kind of a loss of words. It is, a horrendous thing to see.
Kirk's event was the first stop of a multi-state tour. Now it's the last place many will remember seeing him. Kirk is survived by his wife and 2 children. Back at Utah Valley University, classes are canceled and the campus is closed. In Washington, Bafta Imam, NBC News. Back to you.
Well, the shooting is renewing conversations about the political divide across the country. A former University of Minnesota professor and co-founder of a nonpartisan nonprofit says that divide is bigger than ever.
It used to be that somebody did a terrible killing and assassination, and they were condemned for that. Now, they become heroes to some people. We've all contributed to this. And we have to together find a way out of this toxic division we have.
Now, it can be hard to measure and track political violence because it's not always clear what fits into that category. However, Princeton University's Bridging Divides initiative says there have been elevated threats against public officials in all levels of government. Vigils were held across the country in the last 12 hours, like at the Utah State Capitol and the Turning Point USA's headquarters in Phoenix, which Kirk co-founded at 18 years old. Back here at home, Minnesota Senator Julie Coleman says Kirk played a major role in getting her into politics. That's after he hired her to work for his company in its early stages.
While he created this crazy empire, and when I worked for him, it was out of his garage of his parents' house. All he really wanted to do was be a dad. And it's terrible that those who want to say what they believe are increasingly growing in fear, especially after everything we've seen here personally in Minnesota.
More gun violence yesterday, this one at a Denver area high school. And we're learning this morning a teenager who shot 2 students before turning the gun on himself has died. The shooting happened yesterday afternoon at Evergreen High School, 30 miles west of Denver. Police are still investigating, but say there were shots fired both inside and outside the school building. Students describing a chaotic scene.
I was scared and I felt like sick because I was worried. There was a message over the intercom and they basically just said that they were going into lockdown.
The 2 students injured in the shooting are still in critical condition at this hour. Now, there's encouraging news to tell you about this morning about one of the children shot during the Annunciation Church mass shooting 2 weeks ago. We've learned Sophia Forchis is finally out of critical condition, according to NPR News. The 12-year-old girl was shot in the head and had to be placed in a medically induced coma due to a bullet lodged in her brain. A Hennepin Healthcare spokesperson tells NPR Sophia is in serious condition, which means there is a chance for improved prognosis. We're live this morning from Ground Zero in New York City, 24 years after nearly 3,000 people lost their lives in the September 11th attacks. And here at home in Minnesota, volunteers are honoring the victims and first responders at Fort Snelling National Cemetery. Our Audrey Russo is there now with more.
Now, starting at 10 a.m., volunteers are going to spend about 3 hours here at Fort Snelling. They'll be cleaning off some headstones and beautifying the grounds in tribute to the first responder and military communities. Now, this is all part of a national movement led by the nonprofit Carry the Load. And on your screen right now, you can see some of the work that will be happening at VA cemeteries across the country. Now, 120 volunteers are expected to show up to the effort here in Minneapolis. And at the same time, just 9 miles away, there's another event to mark the day. More than 700 volunteers will pack meals for the hungry at the River Center Auditorium. Now, their goal is to try to get 200,000 shelf-stable meals packed. And the name of this event is called Remembering the Good by Doing Good. And this is the 4th year. Back to you.
The woman convicted of buying the guns used to ambush and kill 3 Burnsville first responders is starting her nearly 4-year prison sentence this morning. A judge sentencing Ashley Deardahl to 45 months in prison late yesterday. She pleaded guilty back in January to buying the guns her boyfriend, Shannon Gooden, used to kill 3 Burnsville first responders. Gooden was a convicted felon and wasn't supposed to have a gun. Before the sentence was handed down, Deardahl gave a tearful apology, saying she prays for the victims and their loved ones every day. Here's Burnsville's police and fire chiefs speaking out just after the sentencing.
Sentencing will never feel like it's enough because we will never get our fallen heroes back.
Every day these spouses are waking up without their significant other and having to raise a family themselves.
The judge said he could have sentenced Deardahl to as much as 6 years in prison, but noted others convicted of similar crimes got lighter sentences. This morning, a former Minnesota Teacher of the Year is facing prison time after a judge found him guilty of sexually assaulting an 8th grader. Abdul Wright was charged in May after the victim's mother said her daughter was assaulted in Wright's 8th grade class at Harvest Best Academy. Wright won Teacher of the Year in 2016. The assaults started shortly after he received that award. He's facing between 12 and 14 years in prison. Harvest Best Academy released this statement in the last 24 hours, saying in part they are, quote, thankful Wright has been held accountable for his actions. We continue to express concern for the victim and the victim's family. They go on to say they're committed to ensuring the, quote, learning environment remains safe, supportive, and conducive to success. In just over a year, Minnesotans will elect the state's next governor. And this morning, Governor Walz is giving strong hints about his plans to run for a 3rd term. At an event in Inver Grove Heights, we asked Walz directly if he'll jump into the race. Take a listen to what he said.
We want to make an official announcement here in the next, I think, few days to try and get out there. It's a privilege of a lifetime to serve as the governor of Minnesota. I said there's no guarantee that this is your spot to have, but I would also say I am very proud of the work we've done. Again, when I hear things like child care, or we talk about the uncertainty in the federal government, I think that steels me that this is one of those things I don't think you switch horses midstream.
Now, right after this, he was pressed further on whether he's leaning toward running for a third term. He told reporters, quote, "I think that's a safe assumption." But as you just heard Walz say, official announcements will come out in the next few days. Also this morning, we're learning about disruptions at the U of M Twin Cities as union service workers continue their strike. Teamsters Local 320 shared this TikTok video showing a U of M student in a dining hall with not a lot of food and no workers. Well, the union blamed the university for not investing in the people who make campus run. Most residential dining is unaffected, but all retail dining and robot delivery are out of service. Now the university is responding to reports of harassment by the picketers to the temporary workers, writing, quote, "Threatening people based on their national origin, damaging private property, and preventing supplies from being delivered to a critical healthcare facility are unacceptable actions and they'll not be tolerated." The union claims the reports are not true. A lot to break down. Well, stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.